Greetings, friends. I am Matthew Knabe, licensed professional counselor. You are listening to Experience Emerge. Today we will dive into another conversation about the broken and fractured aspects of our lives. Then we will discuss how we put these pieces back together again to find rest and live free. C.S. Lewis once said, "Miracles are a retelling in small letters of the very same story which is written across the whole world in letters too large for some of us to see." In today's episode, we are going to explore a story in hopes to gain a little bit of perspective on those larger letters. Well, here we are nearing the end of an epic year of unforgettable events. Today on the podcast, I have two people that I've grown very fond of over the past year or so. To say they entered into a new role at Emerge Counseling Ministries during a strange time is an understatement. I appreciate their willingness to be obedient and open to what God was and is doing in their life during this roller coaster of a transition. Today we discuss how we enter into this Christmas season with some optimism around tradition, family, and how to navigate the changes we will be facing during this holiday season. Please welcome to the program the president of Emerge and his wife, Dr. Robert and Pamela Crosby.
It is great to be with you, Matt. We are so excited about the Experience Emerge podcast, and just to see the ground that you and those guests that you've had with you have covered in the last several months. We have actually, Pamela and I have served Emerge since last year. We assumed the role in May, made the move to the area, to the Akron, Ohio area in June, and have been serving as president of Emerge. And it's a real privilege. It's not a role that we ever anticipated being in, but we now see how it was in God's timing. Pamela and I met several years ago at college in Florida, Southeastern University. We went into ministry, youth ministry, for about 10 years in upstate New York at an inner city church. And then we served for about 3 years at a church in Dayton, Ohio, for a brief period. And then the Lord directed us to Boston, to that great city, and we pastored a church there. We're lead pastors at a church for about 15 years. Loved that part of the country, enjoyed the North. I'm originally from South Carolina, Pam's from Michigan, but we have spent most of our ministry years in the Northeast. And then we spent about 12 years serving as vice president and a professor at Southeastern University in Lakeland, Florida. And Pamela was the director of careers at Southeastern. So we went back to our alma mater and were able to serve there and work with millennials and Gen Z. And so when we came to Emerge, part of our burden has been to see this incredible counseling ministry and organization that is now 48 years old really be redirected for a new generation of people in need. So we talk about building Emerge 2.0 for a new generation. Well, by now, your listeners have noticed that I have a little bit of a raspy voice, and it isn't a cold. It isn't a flu. It's that I actually have a vocal condition that I've dealt with for about 25 years. So I went through a treatment not too long ago, and I'm still in a little bit of the recovery period. But I actually lost my voice in the middle of preaching a sermon. And at first, we thought it was a laryngitis. I was living in New England, in Boston. But we found out it's a condition called spasmodic dysphonia. That is an involuntary lapsing of the vocal cords. So it's been something that has been much a matter of prayer. I've had a lot of people pray for me. I have treatments for it that help me. It doesn't hinder me from speaking, preaching, doing what I do. But through it, the Lord has, I believe, until the day he heals me, he's used it to help me to lean on him. As a matter of fact, when I first lost my voice and I hit a point of great discouragement years ago, I really felt like the Lord was directing me to work on developing something new, and that was writing. So I began to write and have been privileged to write and publish books and articles that have gone around the world. So I tell people when I lost my physical voice for a period, God opened up a different voice, a writing voice. So for those listening, if you ever have God close a door in your life, open your eyes because he could be opening another one that you never expected. But just like listeners to Experience Emerge, it's like everybody has something that they deal with. A family crisis, a physical malady, an emotional trauma, something that becomes that thing that can be very difficult. So we're delighted to be at Emerge. We're excited to be able to work with people like you, Matt. You're a gifted clinician, and we're thrilled that you are hosting this podcast and excited about the future.
Well, I appreciate it. It's kind of surreal, wrapping up this season and thinking back when the three of us were in that little kind of coffee shop actually a year and a half ago, talking about what we've been doing. And it's so cool just to see how this whole thing kind of came to fruition. I remember Dr. Crosby, you were like, would you be interested in doing a podcast? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And then here we are. And it's just crazy to look back over, the last, 10, 11 months and just seeing how this thing has grown and just the feedback we've been able to get with that. And I'm so excited to have you guys on this particular episode. And from the first episode until now, especially Pamela and I have been talking so much about how are we going to get the Crosbys on the podcast. And it just divinely kind of worked out that we're going into an extremely important season. As we talked just before the podcast started, and as we were praying, it's like, we're going into our Savior's birth season, and I think it's a very strange time for people. I think we got a little taste of that at Thanksgiving, and as a therapist, I'm hearing things from clients, and what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about family traditions. We're going to talk about the holiday. We're going to talk about that in the context of what it looks like during a pandemic. And I just want you guys to be able to share a little bit about how you're going to be kind of focusing on this time of year with your family. And really our goal is to bring some hope into a season that I think a lot of people are going into with not enough of that.
It is such a difficult season for so many. I get texts from my kids saying, I hate this because it leaves us all in such a, just wondering where before you could just make plans and with the holidays, you could make your holiday family plans. And this just creates such a kind of a confusion. It's created a pause for us in so many ways and in so many areas of life. But it's a challenge at holiday times for families.
So Pamela, one of the things that you and I kind of talked about going into this episode, if you could just spend a couple minutes talking about how do we carry on family tradition. I think there's a lot of things that, going into this season, I think people are maybe discouraged about, but you and I had a really good conversation about some of the things that you guys have done and maybe some ideas to help maybe somebody listening to be creative during this time, looking maybe a little bit outside of the box and understanding that it's not going to exactly be maybe what it looked like before.
Sure. I'm so excited to be able to just embrace a new area when we've come to this Akron area. It brought us back to Four Seasons, which was really exciting for us. So it also just has brought a flood of memories for me. We are at a unique season in our own life. We've got 4 children. They are now 4 adult kids, and boy, does that happen fast. I had a phrase that I probably caught a little too late in my mothering years, and that was embrace the moment. And if you don't embrace them, even when you do, they just fly. And it's wonderful that we have the opportunity every year to mark new moments and to mark new memories. And every season of life brings something new. COVID is a season that none of us will ever forget. And I think there are a lot of listeners out there that will one day say to their kids, I was alive during that time, or they'll say it to their grandkids. So our four children who are now grown and living in different areas, our two oldest are married, and we have three beautiful grandchildren that also happens really fast. Once that first one comes, it's like boom, boom. So it's an exciting time, and yet there's been a lot of FaceTime this year with family members that we can't get together with. There's been a lot of adjustments of our plans. But when it comes to the traditions that our kids grew up in, it's been exciting to see them begin to repeat that in their marriages and in their own families with their kids. So oftentimes at the beginning of every December, my kids would wake up, and the first day of December, they would see a paper chain hanging outside their bedroom door. And every chain represented something special that they were going to do that day. We often would do things together as a family. So that would be on there. We would do, mom dates or dad dates. There was always a day, Christmas shopping day, where we would take the kids out of school, and they never knew when that day was going to be. So that was always fun to watch them fervently rip up that, paper chain for the day. And it would either be ecstasy or total disappointment because it wasn't the day that you were getting out of school. So that was so much fun. And that would just sort of help us set the stage for the month. That gave me as a mom a more organized month. It forced me to organize my month with the kids. And we were in the midst of, ministry. And I think I don't think it's just ministry. I think it's people who are wholeheartedly dedicated to what God has called them to do, whether it's work in an office, work with a team of people, be an entrepreneur, whatever it is. We're all pretty well busy people in America. And this made us pause at times so that December didn't just rush by, and it wasn't just a bunch of, shopping and wrapping, but we really looked at each other and we really spent time with each other. So that was a real fun tradition for us. And we would carry different things through. Robert and I, he started, oh my goodness, I think now over 25 years ago, he started celebrating with me the 12 days of Christmas. And, where the first day of Christmas, there's going to be something somewhere in the house. Like the first year I remember was a Post-it note on the mirror that said, on the first day of Christmas, my true love gave to me a cup of my favorite coffee. And during the day, he brought me my favorite Starbucks cup of coffee. So they were simple, but it just gives those moments of pause. It creates these moments of memory and marking moments and just saying, hey, I noticed you in the midst of this busyness, in the midst of all this, great festivities. I notice you, and you're an important part of my life, an important part of our family. And that would take us into Christmas Day. And Christmas Day, we often had some really fun traditions. We would, one that we used through the month was the manger scene. And I think a lot of people have done this, but we would use either a piece of paper or a straw. And every time you did a nice act, something kind for someone, you would go put a piece of straw there as a representing that your act of kindness and thoughtfulness was preparing the manger for Jesus. And our manger scenes that we have up in our homes don't have baby Jesus in the manger. We wait until Christmas Day. Gifts aren't given, nothing, Jesus doesn't get in that manger, and Christmas doesn't really begin until that little baby is in the manger. So on Christmas Day, we play the hot and cold game, and it is hilarious to watch your 20-something, 30-something adult kids still run over each other trying to figure out who's going to find Jesus. And whoever finds Jesus gets them in there and they give the first gift. And it's just such a fun thing to remember.
I really think you should film that and put that on YouTube.
Yeah, that sounds like a plot for a movie.
Right. The rest of the world needs to see grown adults doing stuff like that.
Yeah, it does. One item I would add to that, Matt, that I think maybe complements what Pamela said. Pamela's theme in life, as she said, has been embrace the moment. And I think the one similar to it that has caught my attention over the years is one that she mentioned right at the end. Pamela, you said marking the moment. We've watched certain parents and people over the years who know how to mark the moments. My father-in-law is one that does it incredibly well. Sort of like you read about how, in the Old Testament, how Abraham, when there was some significant event, he would place a stone there and he'd say, we're putting it here so that in years to come, when people pass by, parents can tell their children what happened here. And there's something about marking a moment, and it doesn't take a lot. We say it this way: when moments are marked, memories are made. And marking a moment is often as simple as, everybody's at the table, you're having a meal, you have much to be thankful for. And dad or mom say, hey guys, just, before we dive in, we're definitely going to pray. But I just have to say, God has been so good to us. And we're proud of you for this, and you for this, and this son for this, and this, just to mark the moment. That does something, it solidifies something within us. But I also want to mention something a little bit more on the humorous end. When Pamela and I got married, when you get married, there's similarities, but there are differences. And one of the differences with us, I was raised in a home where my parents put all our gifts under the tree in the morning, and they didn't wrap them. You got up in the morning and quote unquote Santa Claus had left all these gifts, and you just go crazy for about 2 minutes, and then you start playing with your toys.
And then Christmas is over.
Yeah. And then I visited Pam. We went to my home the first Christmas. The next year we went to Pamela's. And they open every gift, one person, one gift at a time. And opening gifts now could potentially take a couple of hours.
Yeah, I was going to say, then 6 hours later, you get to start playing with your toys.
Yeah. And then they're like, hey, open that one again. I want to get a video of it. And so Pamela, she was, that first year, I know, very frustrated by how hurried Christmas was.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I think the Lord began to teach me the gift of patience. That's
Yeah, I think our family is very similar. It's like we would start opening Christmas morning, and then it was usually by New Year's Eve we were done, because everybody had to watch every present being opened, so nobody could open another one until everybody was looking. Yeah, it's exactly.
Yes.
So, Dr. Crosby, can you talk to me a little bit about this idea of expectation adjustment going into this Christmas season in 2020?
Yeah, Matt, in working with counseling and the great team of clinicians and counselors that God's given us at Emerge, Emerge is a place where people come with challenges, questions, struggles, stresses. And, there's some stresses in our lives that really take concentrated effort, prayer, often clinical skill, gifts, the leading of God's Spirit to see them removed. But then there's stresses in our lives that are smaller ones, but they're aggravating, that could be removed. And some of them don't really always require therapy to remove some of those more simple, more common ones. And what Pamela and I have discovered over the years, that if your expectations are at one level and your reality is at a lower level, what's in between the expectation and the reality is stress. So as long as your expectations, you keep them high and your reality doesn't change, it can turn into a real stress. So how do we reduce the stress? Well, we either lower our expectations a bit or we change our reality.
Mhm.
And often life is a little bit of both of those. I think many moments of every day in life is a little bit of expectation adjustment and reality development and change. And it doesn't mean we don't want to believe God for great things. We do, but we also want to make sure that we're not creating false expectations. And generally speaking, and this is probably another podcast, but generally speaking, in working with a lot of couples over the years, Pamela and I have experienced that generally, and again, I underline that term, that men struggle with their ego. And that generally, Pamela would tell you that women struggle with their expectations.
Mhm.
You take those two and put them in a marriage, and they tend to work against one another. Now, there's a positive side to both of those. But the process of learning how to manage our expectations and our realities can relieve a lot of stress. And unfortunately, sometimes I actually enjoy Thanksgiving more than Christmas because Thanksgiving isn't as commercialized as Christmas. And there may be parents out there, in different circumstances this year, people that have lost their job through this pandemic or people that are overwhelmed. And in your mind, you're thinking Christmas should be exactly what it was a year ago.
Mhm.
And it's not going to be able to be that this year. And you're feeling stressed. You're feeling like you're not measuring up. You're feeling like you're letting people down. And I want to encourage you, with God's help, to really reconsider what you're expecting and reconsider what really matters most. Could the kids really tell you what they got for Christmas 2 years ago? Could they remember? It's like it's been said, what people will remember is not just what you gave them, but it's how you made them feel. It's what you did to help them feel loved and valued.
Yeah. I think that's such a huge point. Over the last several weeks in session, I've had so many conversations about this very topic. And it's not that adjusting your expectations is bad. I think a lot of times people are going into the situation going, well, if I adjust my expectation of Christmas, it means I'm moving it into a direction that it's not as good as it was last year. But that's not necessarily what it needs to be.
No.
It's adjusting to the realities of what the situation is that we're living, but it doesn't mean it's worse. And so that's one of the big messages that I feel like, our listeners need to hear in going, just because it's different doesn't mean it's bad.
It's true. It's very true, Matt. And, along with that, I was talking to a pastor, a good friend in the Akron area, Joey Johnson, a couple of weeks ago, and he's doing a series with his church right now on lamenting. And he said, in Psalms, we want to talk about all those joyful Psalms. Oh, Lord, our Lord, how excellent is your name. And I will praise the Lord, And he said, but there are also many Psalms that say, how long, O Lord? How long must I go through this challenge? And he said, we need to learn that life includes joys and lamenting. And, you and I know if you put a group of people in a room that don't know each other and you introduce them by saying, hey, tell us about your successes. Within a couple of minutes, everybody's going to feel stressed and they'll be comparing themselves. But if you say, tell me about struggles that you've gotten through, within a few minutes, people are going to have tears in their eyes. They're going to feel close. There's going to be a sense of community. So this is a season when families, through dealing with the realities of the season, can actually come closer to one another in ways that maybe just all those presents and gifts and food items, maybe never really brought us.
Yeah. The big word that keeps coming to my mind for going into the season, but really the whole year, is adapt. Like how are we able to adapt to these situations and still find joy in God and in Christ and our faith? And, I think it's such an important thing. I use this example all the time. If we're rigid and we're not able to adapt, life doesn't care. Like life still is going to come and hit you like a brick. But if we can adapt to these changes, great things can still come out of 2020. I know I keep saying that. People think,
it is true.
Matt, you're nuts. Like there's nothing's great that's going to come out. But I think the three of us, months and months ago had a conversation about it's during these years of adversity that great things come in the future, because it forces us as humans to be creative, to think outside of the box, to not get stuck in our routines, to develop stronger relationships, to work on our communication. I mean, all of these things are really, really good that are happening right now. But I think, it's a matter of really kind of revealing that to people and going, it's okay. I mean, you look back in our history, there's so many adversities that we have gone through since the beginning of time. And oftentimes through those, some of the most significant things have happened for mankind out of those things. And so I keep laying my hat on that. Like God's doing something great in 2020. And, I know looking back on my life when I was going through a difficult time, it's hard to see it in the moment, but then you get a year, 2 years past and you look back and you go, oh, well, that totally makes sense. That's really what I feel like in 2023, we're going to look back and go, oh, yeah, that's what God was doing. Because in the middle of it, it's like, I don't know. This has been a weird year.
Really has.
I want to talk a little bit. We got a few minutes, and I want to focus on. We've talked about this concept of drawing circles of honor. Can you guys share a little bit about what that means?
Yeah, I want Pamela to be able to speak to this, but I would like to introduce it, with just a story. And one is the moment when Jesus was water baptized. And he was baptized by John the Baptist. He came out of the water. The Bible says the heavens opened and the Father said, "This is my beloved Son in whom I'm well pleased." It's almost like the God who had hidden himself for, eternity and didn't show himself physically, that the heavens were open and he couldn't resist that moment of affirming his Son. So in that moment, it's like the Father shone a spotlight of honor on his Son. He said, "Look, this is my beloved Son." Well, later on, people asked Jesus, "The miracles you're doing, they're amazing." He said, "Oh, I only do what I see my Father doing." So all through Scripture, we see the members of the Trinity drawing circles of honor around one another. The Trinity is a community of persons, a community of honor. Well, Pamela and I, years ago, we were on a flight to Lima, Peru. And when I got on the plane, we had to sit separately. We were fairly close to one another, but apart a bit. And I thought, oh, we have 6-hour flight from Miami to Lima. Hopefully I'm going to be able to rest and read. Well, right next to me, a Hispanic mom with her little toddler sat down right next to me. On my left, to my right, a mom with a toddler and an infant. And I thought, oh my goodness, this could be interesting. And what was it like? It was just what you imagined. The kids, mama, agua, and like getting them to watch videos and changing diapers, and the little boy next to me pulling on my clothes, and all these things that you could feel the people in the plane just tensing up. Like, when is this flight going to be over? Well, the mom kept saying, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And she was talking to her husband. These kids are rambunctious. When are they going to settle down? She said, "Oh, I know when they'll settle down. When the plane begins to descend, they're all going to go to sleep. And then how are we going to get them and our luggage out of here?" So she's like a running narrative because she's embarrassed. Well, as the plane was getting ready to land, about 10 minutes before landing, I saw a familiar hand come out to the right side of my view and pat the mom on her shoulder. And I heard a familiar voice that said, "You know what? You're a wonderful mother. I've watched you on this whole flight. You and your husband are great parents. Parenting isn't easy, but you sure do a great job." And it was Pamela sitting behind her that just affirmed her right out loud, right in front of everybody.
Wow.
And my heart sunk, and I was like, I wish I'd thought to say that. Yeah. And then you could feel the people kind of ashamed, me and the others around me, because we're just like, when are these kids going to get off this plane? But you know what? By the end of that flight, we were able to talk with that couple, share about the ministry reason that we were on the trip. And it was beautiful just to open them up to us. But what she did, she drew a circle of honor in an unexpected place to an unexpected person. our world needs that so much today. So often as Christians, we're so focused on talking about honor. Pamela, share some about your experiences.
Well, I think that in so many ways, honor begins at home. It begins with us as parents to our kids, to teach them how to honor us in the right moments, and honoring their teachers and the adults and the leaders in their lives. And if they don't see it in our life, that won't happen for them. And we see less and less of it all the time. But I remember one day when the kids got home, it was just an odd day. It wasn't a holiday. It wasn't anybody's birthday. It was just an off day. And I said, hey, you guys, what do you think if we did like a king of the day dinner for Dad? And they were like, what do you mean? And so I had like a paper crown from Burger King, and they put their stickers on it, and we decorated the table and cooked some of his favorite stuff. And that night when he came home from the office, the kids were so pumped about being able to have, honor Dad as, the King Day. And I thought, it's those moments. One of the kids actually brought it up to me the other day, and I thought it's those moments that really teach us how to honor one another, the importance of honoring one another. And it takes effort. And for some moms, some of us are so overwhelmed with just getting through the day that even when you talk about things like Christmas traditions and things like that, it can be really difficult because it's an overwhelming time of the year. But I do believe that in this season with COVID, one of the aspects of COVID that I've had to learn to embrace, because I don't sit still very well. And it has taught me to, during quarantine, how many options did we have? And even now, there's so many coffee shops still closed, and we can't get together necessarily with friends, and that day-to-day, just the day-to-day regular routine that we are used to. And so I believe that one of the positives of COVID for me is that it has made me sit still. And when I do that, I think about, okay, well, who could I encourage through email, or who could I text that I haven't talked to in a while? We even, had a time where we were going through our contacts and just checking in with people and calling them or texting them. And I think anytime we acknowledge another person's presence, we are honoring them. And then if we go the next step and say, what you do, what your life produces has blessed my life, or I see how it's blessing others. And I believe that one of the positives to COVID is it has slowed everybody's life down. And hopefully we will take that time and use it wisely to honor others and to mark moments and to look at this. And I agree with you, Matt. I think that adjustments aren't always bad. They improve us sometimes. They stretch us, and they oftentimes create a new level of courage within us. And it's so important that we live that out in front of our children so that they are learning while we are going through this process, and learning how to honor one another in the midst of it.
Yeah. Yeah. One little tidbit to add is Pamela and I have experienced that it's great when you can honor someone directly, one-on-one, but it is multiplied when you honor them in front of someone. Mm-hmm. An example might be that, if you're someone who, you have someone that you work with, and you work with them regularly, maybe they work for you. And then you have an opportunity to be around their spouse, let's say at a Christmas event or some other event. When you're with them, it's great to meet them, say hello. But if there's something affirming you can say about their spouse, hey, we love having her on our team. She does such a great job at this, this, and this. That just builds and affirms a soul in such a big way. And we live in a world, and we've gone through seasons of such negative language, discouraging things about people, labeling people, graceless responses, that I believe one of the great opportunities that the church has today is to draw circles of honor. So Pamela and I are kind of on a campaign. We've talked about this in South America and the United States, to raise up teams of people who are committed to drawing circles of honor all over their community in places where people would never expect it. Those were the things that Jesus did that surprised everyone. Like a woman taken in adultery. He said, neither do I condemn you, and nobody expected a righteous man to say that to her. Yeah. So there are places all over our world. Maybe it's the person who checks out your groceries, or whatever. And there are moments that are waiting to be seized.
Yeah. The thing I love about what we're talking about right now is you can do that anytime. COVID can't stop that. We can be that to people in our lives on any level. And that can be a phone call. It could be, a virtual call like we're doing. There's so many different ways that we can still stay connected and honor each other. And I'd like to say this for the two of you, and honoring the two of you in front of our audience and going, you guys came into leadership at Emerge at a very strange time. And God bless you both. But for what you guys have been able to accomplish with our leadership team, fairly quickly going into a pandemic, I'm so proud of the place that I call home for my work, because we have done an excellent job from day one adjusting to something that, nobody was prepared for. And so I want to honor the both of you. Not only did you just come into role and you're getting to know Emerge and, getting to know the people, but then you go through literally the strangest thing that you could ever, and it was great. You guys have done a tremendous job, and I'm honored to work alongside of you guys through this process. So as you guys were sitting here talking about honor, I'm like, man, this is a perfect opportunity for me to share that with you guys about the way we've been able to walk through this year. And, we have weekly and meetings or oftentimes we're meeting in teams often. And so the communication has been excellent. And I really don't feel like we've missed much of a beat. I mean, it's like, things are different. It looks different.
Yeah.
I haven't been in the office in 11 months, but we're still operating and we're still serving the population that needs it. True. And it would have been, very early on, I'm like, am I going to have a job when the whole thing happened, everybody was scared. And so anyway, I wanted to say that because I think it's important to honor you guys and the ability to come into a new role and face what you guys have faced and be able to continue the way that we've been able to continue is really awesome. And I really appreciate both of you, kind of winding up the first season of the XM podcast and being guests on it. And I know you guys are busy and it's a holiday season and everything else. I appreciate your time so very much. Thank you so much for being a part of this show today.
Sure.
Thank you, Matt.
We're delighted and really appreciate those words, Matt. And I think we, as you, when this whole unusual season hit, we wondered what will it mean for Emerge. But we've discovered that just about everybody needs counseling these days. And so we are really trying to simply press into the need. And the team has done that really well. And there may be other people that work with organizations out there that were traveling a lot as we were. And that changed. But, the good part of that change is it's helped us to spend more time developing the organization with the team. And we have come to discover that the best member of Emerge's staff is the team itself, that there's incredible wisdom in the team. And you're a big part of that. And we appreciate those words.
Yeah, thanks.
Yes, thanks, Matt. And it's an honor to work with people like you.
Pamela and I, we work very, very closely on creative side to Emerge and really on the podcast. So it's been a true joy this year. And I'm so excited for next year. I'm excited for our listeners to see how we grow and develop and how this whole XM podcast is going to, continue to look different and adjust, like exactly what we're talking about. Well, guys, thank you so much. God bless you. I appreciate so much your time.
Sure.
Thank you, Matt. Merry Christmas.
Yeah, Merry Christmas.
And Merry Christmas to you both. I really hope this has been encouraging and insightful to all of you listening. I am so thankful for the Crosbys, and not only giving their time to record this episode, but for what they have done at Emerge in such a hectic year. Their message today was about remembering the importance of this season and how we best can make adjustments to set expectations around our reality and be able to make memories and continue traditions and even make some new ones. I pray you have a wonderful time this holiday. Thank you for listening and supporting what we do here at the XM Podcast. Please share these episodes that we have done over the course of 2020. Give us a comment if you don't mind, and pray for what God might have in store for us in 2021. Feel free to reach out to me with questions or comments about the show at experience@emerge.org. Well, until next time, or when our Savior comes, God bless.